Okay, so picture this. You have lived next door to this guy for 3 years. His name is Ray. You know Ray. Ray drives a 2014 Honda Civic with a small dent above the rear bumper that he never got fixed. Ray mows his own lawn. Ray brings his lunch to work in a reusable container that has definitely seen better days. Ray wears the same rotation of 5 t-shirts that you are pretty sure he has owned since college. Ray does not have the latest phone. Ray does not go on the kind of vacations that end up on Instagram. Ray is just Ray. Normal, quiet, slightly boring Ray. And then one Tuesday morning, you see a moving truck outside the house down the street. The nice house, the one with the big backyard and the updated kitchen that everyone in the neighborhood has been watching, come up for sale. And you find out from another neighbor, because Ray certainly did not announce it, that Ray just bought that house. In cash. No mortgage, no loan, no financing. Just Ray, a cashier's check, and a signed deed. And your brain does something it has never quite done before. It stopped. Because nothing about Ray said that was possible. Nothing about how Ray lived, how Ray dressed, how Ray spent money suggested that Ray had the kind of money that buys a house outright. And yet, today, we are going inside the mind of Ray. We are going to understand how someone who looks broke, who looks genuinely, unremarkably average, can quietly accumulate the kind of wealth that shocks everyone who thought they knew them. And I promise you, by the end of this video, the way you look at the Rays in your life is never going to be the same. Let me tell you Ray's real story, because Ray is not a myth. Ray is a composite of real people, people I have spoken to, people whose stories I have read, people who show up in the data on American Millionaires with remarkable consistency. Ray is 38 years old. He works as a mid-level systems analyst at a company you have never heard of. He earns $84,000 a year, a good income, not a spectacular one. He has been working for 15 years. He has never been promoted to the executive level. He has never started a business. He has never inherited money. His parents were a nurse and a warehouse manager who retired modestly and left him nothing financial except the advice his father gave him when he got his first real paycheck at 23 years old. His father said this: Ray, the second that money hits your account, move 20% of it somewhere you cannot see. Do not look at it. Do not think about it. Just live on the 80% and forget the 20% exists. Do it automatically. Do it forever. Ray did exactly that for 15 years. He was not sophisticated about it for the first few years. He put it in a savings account. Then someone explained index funds to him, and he moved it there. Then someone explained tax-advantaged accounts, and he maximized those first. Then the money in his taxable brokerage account kept growing, and he kept adding to it, and somewhere around year 11, he looked at a number on a screen and realized that the house down the street, the one with the big backyard, was something he could buy outright if he wanted to. He did not rush. He waited 4 more years. He let the number grow. He made sure his emergency fund was solid, his retirement accounts were on track, and his taxable account had what he needed and then some. And then on a Tuesday morning, he wrote a check. Let me show you exactly how Ray did this, because the numbers are more accessible than most people think, and that is the part of this story that actually matters. Ray earned $84,000 a year. His take-home after taxes, roughly $62,000. 20% of $62,000 is $12,400 per year. That is approximately $1,033 per month that Ray moved automatically on payday to accounts he did not touch. In year 1, that feels like nothing. $1,000 a month in an index fund earning 7% annually does not make you feel rich. It makes you feel like you are doing something responsible that you cannot fully see yet. In year 3, Ray had approximately $40,000. Still not house money, but the interest was starting to compound at a rate he could feel, not just see on paper, but actually feel in how the number moved. In year 7, Ray had approximately $110,000. At this point, the account was generating somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 per year in returns, meaning the account was effectively contributing almost as much as Ray was each month. The engine had started running. In year 11, Ray crossed $300,000. The annual return on his portfolio was over $20,000. His money was earning more than a part-time salary without him working a single additional hour. In year 15, Ray had just over $500,000. The house down the street was listed at $480,000. Ray spent 3 weeks deciding. He bought it. He still had money left over. His retirement accounts were separate from all of this, on track for a comfortable retirement regardless of the house purchase. 15 years, 20% of take home. 1 index fund. No drama, no luck, no secret. Here's the part of Ray's story that is actually harder than the investing, because the investing is mechanical. You set up a transfer. The transfer runs. The market does what the market does. The hard part, the genuinely difficult part, is what Ray chose not to do for 15 years. Ray did not upgrade his car when everyone else in his department was driving something newer, not because he could not afford to, because he ran the numbers one afternoon and realized that the difference between his 2014 Civic and a new $40,000 car was at 7% over 15 years, roughly $112,000. He looked at that number and looked at his car and decided the car was fine. Ray did not move into a bigger apartment when his income went up. He stayed in his 2-bedroom for 11 years. His rent was below market because he had been there long enough to benefit from a landlord who valued reliability over maximizing income. Every year he stayed was a year he was not paying the premium of a new lease in a more expensive building. Ray did not do the international vacation every year that his colleagues were doing. He took vacations, reasonable, enjoyable vacations, but he did not spend money on travel to signal that he was successful. He was not interested in being seen as successful. He was interested in being successful. Ray did not buy the investment property that 3 different colleagues told him about at 3 different company happy hours. He did not understand real estate well enough to be confident in it, and he had a rule: he did not invest in anything he did not understand well enough to explain in one sentence. An index fund owns a small piece of every company in America and grows as the economy grows. One sentence. He understood that. He stayed in it. And perhaps most importantly, Ray did not tell anyone what he was doing. Not his colleagues, not his friends, not his neighbors, not even you. And you lived next door for 3 years, not because he was secretive or antisocial, because he had learned early that talking about money invites opinions, and opinions, especially the kind that come from people who have never built the thing they are opining about, have a way of introducing doubt into a system that works precisely because it runs without doubt. Here's what I think is the most fascinating part of Ray's story, and the part that took me the longest to fully understand. Ray does not feel rich, not in the way most people imagine feeling rich would feel. He does not wake up in the morning with a sense of abundance radiating outward. He wakes up, makes coffee, checks his phone, and goes about his day. The house is bigger, the backyard is nice, but Ray is fundamentally the same person he was when he was renting. And that is not a failure of his wealth to deliver satisfaction. That is the psychology of the quietly wealthy, the psychological profile that made the wealth possible in the first place. Ray never tied his sense of self to his possession. His identity was never anchored to his car, his apartment, his clothes, or what other people thought about any of those things, which meant he was never under the social pressure to upgrade those things to protect his self-image. And that freedom, the freedom from needing things to signal who you are, is both the cause and the consequence of the wealth he built. Most people spend money to feel something, to feel successful, to feel admired, to feel that they are keeping pace with the people around them. Ray spent money to live, just to live. The basics done well, a few genuine pleasures chosen intentionally, and everything else going to the future. He told a mutual friend, not me. He still has not told me directly, because Ray is Ray, that the most surprising thing about buying the house in cash was not the house. It was the feeling of doing it. He had expected to feel triumphant, to feel like he had won something. Instead, he felt calm. He felt like something he had known was coming for a long time had simply arrived. There was no drama, because there had never been drama. Just the system, running quietly for 15 years. I want to be specific here, because the story of Ray is inspiring, but inspiration fades. What you need are the 3 actual things Ray did, translated into actions you can start this week. The first thing Ray did was automate before he could spend. His 20% did not require willpower every month, because it was not a decision every month. It moved automatically on payday. He set it up once in year 1 and never reconsidered it. The automation is the strategy. Without the automation, the strategy is just an intention, and intentions do not compound. If you cannot do 20% today, do 10. If you cannot do 10, do 5. If you cannot do 5, do 2. The percentage matters less than the automation, because the automation ensures that some version of this runs every single month, regardless of how motivated or disciplined or financially organized you feel on any given payday. Set it up today. Increase it every time you get a raise. Never decrease it. The second thing Ray did was choose boring over clever. He did not try to beat the market. He did not try to find the next great stock or the hot sector or the right moment to buy. He bought one index fund and added to it every month for 15 years. The boring strategy outperformed the clever strategy, as it almost always does over a long enough timeline, and it did so without requiring any of his attention, any of his anxiety, or any of his time. When you catch yourself thinking there must be a smarter way to do this, a better fund, a more sophisticated strategy, a way to accelerate the timeline, remember Ray's 2014 Civic. The car that got you here is probably good enough. Stay in it. The third thing Ray did was detach his identity from his spending. This one is harder because it is not a financial action. It is a psychological shift. It is the decision made consciously or made over time through habit that who you are is not what you own, what you drive, where you live, or what other people think about any of those things. This shift does not happen overnight, but it starts with one question that Ray has been asking himself for 15 years every time he is about to make a significant purchase. Is this because I want it or because I want to be seen wanting it? If the answer is the second one, if the purchase is really about the image it creates rather than the thing itself, he does not buy it. Not because he is ascetic, because he has done the math on what that purchase becomes in 20 years and the image has never been worth the number. Here's the thing about Ray that I want you to sit with for a moment. Ray is not exceptional. He is not uniquely disciplined or unusually gifted or particularly lucky. He is a man with an average income, average intelligence, and one rule that he followed for 15 years without exception. The reason Ray shocked you is not because what he did was rare. It is because the visible evidence of wealth, the new car, the nice apartment, the designer clothes, the expensive vacations is so normalized that when someone is not displaying it, we assume they do not have it. We read the absence of visible wealth as the presence of financial struggle, and we are almost always wrong. The research on this is consistent and humbling. The majority of American millionaires drive domestic cars, live in modest homes, wear unremarkable clothes, and shop at regular grocery stores. The flashy lifestyle is not the wealthy lifestyle. It is the aspiring to look wealthy lifestyle. And those are not the same thing. Those are, in fact, almost perfectly opposite things. The next time you see someone like Ray, the quiet neighbor, the colleague in the reliable car, the friend who always suggests the less expensive restaurant, do not feel sorry for them. Pay attention to them, because the odds are much better than you think that they are running a system you cannot see. And that system, unglamorous, invisible, and consistent, is building something real while everyone around them builds the appearance of something real. I want to make one thing clear before we wrap up. The cash house purchase is not the goal. Ray's story is not really about the house. The house is just the moment when Ray's invisible system became visible to the people around him. It is the moment when 15 years of quiet, consistent, boring financial decisions produced something so concrete and so undeniable that it could no longer be hidden. But Ray was already wealthy long before the house. He was wealthy when his investment account crossed $100,000. He was wealthy when the account started generating more in annual returns than he was contributing. He was wealthy when he realized that his financial life was no longer dependent on whether he kept his job. The house is not wealth. The options are wealth. The ability to buy the house or not buy it, to travel instead, to retire early, to work part-time, to take a year off, to pursue something you love that does not pay particularly well, that ability is wealth. And that ability is built not by one dramatic decision, but by 15 years of small, invisible, automated decisions that nobody sees until the moving truck shows up. You do not need to buy a house in cash. You need to build a system that makes it possible. And then once the system is running, you decide what you want to do with what it builds. So here is the question I want to leave you with. And I want you to actually sit with it, not just consume it and scroll to the next thing. Are you building wealth or are you building the appearance of wealth? Because both are choices. Both are available to you right now on whatever income you currently have. And both produce results that become very clear after 15 years, just in completely opposite directions. The person who spent 15 years building the appearance, the nicer car, the trendier apartment, the signal-heavy wardrobe, the Instagram-documented life, reaches year 15 and wonders where the money went. They can trace individual purchases but not the total. They feel like they lived well but have nothing to show for it. And the uncomfortable truth is that they did live well, just entirely in the present, entirely for the audience, with no investment in the future. The person who spent 15 years building the thing, the boring index fund, the automated transfer, the car with the dent that never got fixed, reaches year 15 and writes a check for a house, or does not, and keeps the system running. Either way, they are free in a way that the first person is not. Free to choose, free to stop, free to start something new, free from the quiet anxiety that comes from knowing that your lifestyle requires the continuity of your paycheck. Ray is free. He has been free for a while now. He just did not make a big deal about it. If Ray's story hit different, drop a comment below and tell me one thing you are going to do differently after watching this. One thing. Not a list, just one. I read every single comment and I want to know what landed. And if you know someone who needs to hear the story of Ray, send them this video. Not because it is complicated, because sometimes we need to see what is possible before we believe it is available to us. Subscribe, because this channel exists to tell the stories of the people nobody is talking about. The quiet one, the boring one, the ones with the dented Civic and the reusable lunch containers and the cashier's checks for houses nobody saw coming. They are the one worth paying attention to, and we are just getting started.